You are about to see a film which looks at hand tool safety. We use these tools nearly every day, so sometimes we take safety for granted. Let's see if there are any lessons to be learned here. Ideally, you should watch this film with at least 2 of your colleagues, so that you can discuss what you've seen. We will pause at the end of each chapter and ask you some questions, so that you can reflect on what you have seen and heard.
Welcome to Seagull Maritime's video on hand tool safety. We're going to look at the common dangers when using hand tools at sea. We'll then see how proper care, maintenance and use of tools, including the checks needed for power-operated hand tools, can help keep us all safe. Before we start looking at the hand tools themselves, perhaps we should start by saying that we have to be careful where we take hand tools. Metal tools can cause a spark when dropped, and could therefore be a source of ignition in a flammable environment. They might also cause a short circuit across the terminals of batteries. You should only take appropriate and approved tools into a hazardous area. Now let's have a look at some of the dangers of using hand tools the wrong way. Have you seen some of these bad practices on any of your ships? Tools that can cut metals will easily do the same to human skin and bones. One simple rule to follow is always keep both hands behind the cutting edge of a tool. If you have your hand in front of the blade, one slip can cause serious injury. If you need to use a chisel, go and get one. Don't use the wrong tool for the job. For example, screwdrivers are not meant to be used as chisels. Hitting a screwdriver with a hammer may cause it to shatter, which not only breaks the tool, but means there is a risk of hand and eye injuries. What goes up must come down, or it might if it isn't correctly secured. Think about the risks to others when working at height or with others below you. Lift tools to the work area in a box or bag, or use a tool belt, and only take the tools you need with you when working at height. A lanyard can be clipped onto tools to prevent them falling. Carry out a risk assessment. If necessary, keep everyone away from the area below where you're working. A lot of hand tools can create noise and vibration. You need to protect yourself from these as much as possible. Use ear defenders to protect your hearing, and gloves to protect your hands. You may need more frequent breaks when working with some tools that can cause vibration. If you feel your hands going numb or cold, you should take a break. If these symptoms persist, report them and get expert advice. Similarly, if your back is bent unnaturally for a period of time, you may suffer from discomfort and fatigue, and could cause permanent damage to your body. Try to adopt a comfortable position when working, keeping your back straight.
Can you list all of the hazardous areas where flammable gases might exist on your ship, and how to tell if hand tools, including torches, are safe for use in these areas? In this section, we saw some bad practices. Which of these have you seen for yourself on board ship? Click the pause button and start your discussion.
Safe use of hand tools also means that we need to select, store and maintain hand tools properly. Damaged or worn tools should not be used, and cutting edges should be kept sharp and clean. Throwing tools with cutting edges, such as files, into a box or drawer will quickly damage the sharp cutting edges through metal-to-metal contact. Damaged tools are harder to use do not produce such a good job and may be unsafe. Clean tools and store them properly after use. File handles should be properly fitted and in good condition. Using a file in poor condition, whether it is without a handle or the handle is improperly secured, is extremely dangerous, since the sharp tang of the file can cause serious injury to the hands and arms. Store files properly, avoiding metal-to-metal contact with other tools. Do not use a hammer if the shaft is split, broken or loose, or if the head is damaged. Always check that hammer heads are secure. They should be properly fitted with steel or hardwood wedges used. When chisels get used, the end of the chisel gets splayed out. Due to the resulting shape, this is sometimes referred to as mushrooming, which is dangerous because pieces of metal can fly off when the chisel is struck and cause injuries to those using the chisel or nearby. The mushrooming should be ground off once it becomes noticeable. Chisels should also be kept sharp, with the cutting point ground to the correct angle. Tools should only be ground or sharpened by someone competent to do so. As we have said, screwdrivers should not be used as chisels. To avoid damaging screw heads and your own hands, always make sure that screwdrivers are in good condition and use the right size and type of screwdriver for the job. If the blade of a flathead screwdriver has become chipped or damaged, it can be re-ground, but this should be done by a competent person. Always use the right spanner for the job. Worn, splayed or badly fitting spanners will slip, which can cause you to damage your hands or become off balance and fall. It can also damage the flats of the nut, making it even more difficult to remove. Always try to pull the spanner towards you, as this gives you more control and makes it less likely that you will lose your balance if the nut suddenly becomes free.
Did you recognize any of those tools in bad condition? How many such tools would you find on your ship right now? Who is responsible for repairing the hand tools on your ship? Click the pause button and start your discussion.
Powered hand tools need some additional precautions. For instance, tools used for chipping, scaling and grinding are noisy, and ear protection must be worn. As we have already seen, tools need to be specially constructed for use in hazardous areas, such as those with potentially flammable atmospheres. The cables of electrically powered tools and the hoses of hydraulic or pneumatic tools need to be checked to make sure they are in good condition, particularly at any joints and where they enter the tool. Cables and hoses should be laid out carefully, making sure they're not run over sharp edges and that they do not obstruct safe passage around the ship. If hoses or cables pass through doorways, the doors should be secured open to prevent the door closing onto them and causing damage. Before cables are to be run through weathertight or watertight doors, a risk assessment needs to be carried out so that the ship remains safe. Cables are often damaged by bad practices, such as carrying the tool by its own cable, using the cable to hoist and lower the tool, or pulling on the cable to remove its plug from a socket. Carry portable tools properly and keep the power switched off until you are ready to use them. If you're working at height, lift portable power tools in a tool bag or by a properly secured rope. The use of electric-powered tools brings the risk of electric shock, especially when working in damp and humid conditions. This makes it vital that only the correct equipment is used and that it is in good condition. Double insulated power tools, often used ashore, are not suitable for use on board ships because there is a high risk of electric shock if they're immersed in water. On board ship, some authorities recommend a maximum voltage for hand tools of 50 volts AC, with 30 volts to earth, and 24 volts for hand lamps. Center-tapped transformers are often used to provide these safer supplies. Battery-operated equipment is another safe alternative to reduce the risk of electric shock. All portable tools should be carefully inspected before use. The cable entry to electric tools should be checked carefully, as this point often takes a lot of strain. Plugs and connections should be checked for signs of breakage or cracks, as should the tool itself. And it is important to check for any missing parts. If there is any damage or there are missing parts, the tool should be returned to a competent person for investigation or repair, and tagged with "Do Not Use." Always disconnect the power supply before changing accessories in a power tool. And always make sure that they are absolutely secure.
Do you think everyone on board always checks to see that equipment like portable hand lamps is being fed from a low voltage supply when working in conditions where there is a risk of electric shock? Did you already know that double insulated electrical equipment, safe for use ashore, was unsafe in wet or damp environments? Can you think of any electrical appliances that people might bring on board that would be unsafe? Click the pause button and start your discussion.
Let's look back at some of the most important points we have covered about hand tool safety. Always check that it is safe to use the tool where you are planning to use it. Only appropriate and approved tools should be taken into hazardous areas. Select, store and maintain tools correctly. They are much safer and easier to use that way. Always check the tool itself and any power supply cable or hose carefully before use. Never use damaged equipment, and make sure any defects are reported and repaired. Wear the correct PPE and take particular care when working at height to make sure tools cannot fall and hurt others. Lastly, you should always protect yourself when using portable tools. Adopt a safe posture, stay balanced and use the tools properly.